Hi everyone, this is Heather Lawtonen from the Flourish.Academy, where our goal is to empower, educate, and elevate you to create a life that you love through the art and business of photography. In this video, we are going to compare and contrast two different lenses. But first, make sure you check out our sponsor, ymcamera.com, for all of your photography needs. Recently, in the FA community group on Facebook, a friend of mine asked if it was necessary to own the 85 1.4mm lens if you already own a 70-200 2.8. So I thought it would be fun to do a little experimentation with these two lenses and see the difference. The two lenses that I compared are the Tamron 70-200 2.8 for Nikon. That comes in at just under $1,300. And the Sigma 85 1.4 Art for Nikon. And a huge thank you to YM Camera for allowing me to borrow this lens so that I could run this test. And you'll definitely want to check out episode 319, where I talk in a live video about my initial experience. But let's jump over to Lightroom and take a look at the images. I started off on the tripod with a shot of my daughter. You can see here via the EXIF data that I'm using the 85 1.4, and I shot it at 2.8 so that I could compare it to the 70-200 at 85mm at 2.8, also on the tripod. So I was keeping as many variables the same as possible so we could take a look at a direct comparison. So if you look at the 85 versus the 70-200, there's really not a lot of difference. Let's take this into compare mode by selecting both photos and pressing C on the keyboard, and then clicking to zoom in so that we could take a look. Now the light was changing a little bit during our shoot, and I feel like the image on the right has a little bit more flare, which is causing the softness of her skin, but both images look sharp, and I really don't see much of a difference here. Let's take a look at these two images. Again, at this point, we have the Tamron at 2.8 85mm versus the 85 1.4 also at 2.8. We'll take these images into the compare mode by pressing C on the keyboard and zooming in. The color looks a little bit different, which is interesting. The camera would select a slightly different white balance. I did have this on auto white balance. Now, it looks like the 85 was a little bit sharper on this image. Obviously, the image on the right is a little bit soft. That could have been user error. I may have missed the focus, but other than that, I feel that the depth of field and the compression look somewhat similar. Very similar, actually. I don't see enough of a difference to warrant having both lenses just yet. But then I changed up the experiment, and we're going to take a look at these images of Fluffy. And I wanted to compare specifically, is there a difference between the 85 1.4 at 1.4 at its maximum aperture versus 70-200 but zoomed in at 200 at its maximum aperture? So you'll see a variety of things change with these images. It's because I wanted to look at the bigger picture. This image was shot with the 85 still at 2.8. And then I got in a little bit closer, but I took the aperture to 2.0. I was examining the overall look and feel of the compression as well as the depth of field. What did the background look like? And then I switched to the Tamron and I left it at 85 at 2.8. And then I zoomed in at 200 at 2.8 because this was really curious to me. Does the 70-200 at 200 look similar at its maximum aperture to the 85 at 1.4 at its maximum aperture? So again, this image is the Tamron 200 2.8 versus the 85 at 1.4. Obviously, I changed the direction. The lighting changed a little bit. So it's not a perfect experiment. But what I'm looking at here is the background, the shallow depth of field. This is the 85 at 1.4. This is the 70-200 at 2.8. Very interesting, don't you think? Because focal length does matter when it comes to depth of field and aperture. I don't see much of a difference at 200 2.8 to 85 at 1.4, which is exactly what I was looking for. I was curious about this because if it made a difference, then maybe I would want to add the 85 1.4 into my arsenal. But my overall conclusion after looking at all of these images and actually weighing the lenses, and they are almost identical in weight, coming in just around 2 pounds and 12 ounces. I'm thinking, for me, it's not really necessary to own both of these lenses. I enjoy the flexibility of the 70-200, and if it's not saving me any money or weight in terms of carrying equipment on my shoulder or my body, then I am personally going to stick with my 70-200. I know a lot of people love the 85-1.8. I think it's a great lens. If you're enjoying it, by all means, continue to do so. But I'd love to hear from you. Could you please leave a comment and let me know if you use either one of these lenses, what your preference is, and why, specifically why you enjoy using that lens. Please subscribe to the Flourish Academy channel, and I'll see you in the next video.